All right, so we're on problem 2 of the review. All right, so problem 2, we are going to do 13 minus 3D equals -8. So now we are going into two-step problems. All right. So remember the rule of thumb with solving all of these problems is get your variables on one side and get your numbers on the other side. And it really doesn't matter which side you pick for which, just as long as they're separated from each other. All right. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to say, okay, I've got a variable and a number over here. So I'm going to get rid of the number because there's a number over here. Usually I'll let this, if this is different from this, I'll take this thing and move it over regardless of whether it's a variable or a number. So it's a number, so let's move it over, right? Minus 13, minus 13. And the reason I'm subtracting 13, right, is because it's being added to -3D, right? This is -3D. This sign goes with this. It doesn't go with the 13. It goes with this. So I've got 13 and it's positive because there's no sign in front of it. So I'm going to subtract 13 from here. And then I got to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to subtract 13 over here. So if I subtract 13 over there, I get -21. And then you take this whole term here and you just move it down. So I got -3D. All right, so now I want to get D by itself. So the way you get D by itself is just figure out what's my coefficient. Well, this is my coefficient. And so you always divide by whatever your coefficient is. So let's divide by -3. And because I do it on the left side, you got to do it on the right. And you get D is equal to 21 divided by 3 is 7. And a negative divided by negative makes a positive because they follow the same rules as multiplication. I'm just checking something here. I don't see him today. That's weird. Okay, cool. All right, let's put it in, see if it's right. So if I go 13 minus 3 times 7, let's find out what that is. Well, it's 13 minus, well, 3 times 7 is 21. And 13 minus 21 gives me -8. And that is the same as that. And that's what we wanted. So that worked out nicely. All right, now we're going to move on to some slightly harder problems. All right, and I'm going to do more of them because this is what you're going to see. So I'm going to do 6 more problems here. All right, and that may seem like a lot, but you're going to have 8 problems on, I'm planning on giving you guys 8 problems on your quiz. So I'm giving you 8 problems that are going to look a lot like the problems you're going to see on the quiz. So what I would do is I would make sure I'm taking good notes. I would probably take notes on paper because then you can use these notes with you on the quiz. Okay, and that's what you want. You want to be able to have something that you can use with you on the quiz. That's going to make sense. All right, so problem 3. Let's do this one first of all. Let's do 2.5h minus 15 equals 4h. All right, so numbers and variables, right? It looks like I've got a variable and a number over here, and then I've got just a variable on this side. So it would probably make more sense to move this over here because then everything's separated. And that's kind of how you determine it when it's lopsided like this. So I get rid of the 2.5h, I move it by doing the opposite of it. So it's positive, so I subtract 2.5h from both sides. Now, when you're doing 4 minus 2.5, you got to remember, think about it. I mean, seriously, before you start like doing crazy math with it, just think. You have 4 of something, you're taking 2.5 away. Well, if you take 2 away, that's 2. And if you take another half away, that's 1.5, right? And then how would you write 1.5? Write it 1.5. A half is always 0.5. So 1.5. because it's 5/10. And 5/10 is exactly 1/2 of 10/10, all right? So 1.5h, and then that gives you this -15 right here. And then what we're gonna do is divide each side by 1.5 because you always take the coefficient and you divide by it. You divide by 1.5. And if I do that, I will get -10. I'll get h equals -10. All right. And if I put it into my top equation, 2.5 times -10 minus 15. Well, 2.5 times -10, just take your decimal, move it over 1 for every 0. And you have 1 0, so move it over 1. So you get 25 and it's negative. So you get -25 minus 15. Add them up, -40. And 4 times h is 4 times -10. And that's -40 as well. So you get a balanced equation. They both equal each other. And that should make a little sense. All right. And you know what? When I do problems like for quizzes and things that I have to take as a teacher, I always check my answers. And, you know, I know that most of you can't be bothered to do that, but it really is the only way you can be sure if you got it right. You have to check it. You know, if you can come up with another way, that's fine, but you gotta check your answers, because I don't want you guys using things like photo math and everything, because you don't use them what they're for, right? It's not about getting the answer, it's how do you get it. All right, so let's do another one. We'll call this one problem 4. All right, we are gonna do -6f plus 13 equals 2f minus 11. So this is a problem where we have variables and constants on both sides. And remember, a constant is a number that's by itself. All right. So what I got to do is I got to pick a side that I'm going to put the variables on, and I got to pick a side I'm going to put the numbers on. So just for simplicity purposes, let's put the variables over to the left side. Let's put the numbers over to the right side, because it really doesn't matter which side you pick. You will get the exact same answer either way. All right. So let's start by moving this variable over to the left side so we can get them all together. So I'm going to subtract 2f from both sides. All right. So when I subtract 2f from positive 2f, it goes away, and you're left with -11 over here. And then -6f and -2f. If both signs are negative, and you guys have heard me say this probably 10, 15 times now, if both signs are negative, add it up, keep the common sign. The common sign is negative. So 6 plus 2 is 8. So I have 8f, and then it has to be negative. All right, plus 13. The other option is, if you don't remember how to do your integers, it's just, you know, make a number line and say, okay, I'm at -6 right here, and I'm going -2. I'm at -6, and I'm going -2 over. And -2 means you're going to the left, right? So I go 1, 2. And so that puts me at -8. Because when you're on the other side of 0, the numbers go up from left to right. All right, so we get -8 plus 13 equals -11. Now let's move this number over. So it's plus 13, so we got to do the opposite. So minus 13, sorry, not minus 11, minus 13. And this gives you -8f over here, and then -24, because both signs are negative, so you just add them up. 11 plus 13 is 24, and you keep the common sign. Now, we have -8f equals -24. Whatever the number is in front of the coefficient, including its sign, is what you're going to divide by. So I'm going to divide by -8. And because I'm dividing the left side by it, I'm going to do the right. That cancels this out nicely, and you get a 1 in front of your f, which is what you want. And I don't write the 1 down because that's just not what you do in algebra, right? You don't write that 1. So you have f is equal to, well, 24 divided by 8 is 3. Then you have a negative divided by a negative, which gives you a positive. So if I did this right, 3 will work when I plug it into this equation. So this side's going to look like that. This side's going to look like this. So negative 6 times 3 is 18. Negative 18 plus 13. All right. Well, negative 18 plus 13 is negative 5. Because you go 18 minus 13, that's 5. And then your negative goes with your larger number, so you take that sign. All right, so it's negative 5. Over here, you get 6 minus 11. Do the same thing. 11 minus 6 is 5. Keep the sign of the number that looks bigger. That's this one right here. So it's negative 5. And we have an equality. That's what we want. That means we got the correct answer. Okay, let's look at one more example of problems like this. Okay. Now, I haven't seen any questions yet in the chat. I will have this sheet available for you guys to look at if you want to copy any of this down later. Okay? You'll just have to ask me. So we're going to do 2x minus 31 equals negative 9x plus 24. Right? 2x minus 31 equals negative 9x plus 24. So again, think about what do you see? All right? You can usually tell what you're going to do by looking at, first of all, just see, okay, what do I have on the left? What do I have on the right? And you know you're ready to start moving things around when you have, 2 or fewer terms on each side. And I have 2 terms on each side. So that means I can start moving things across the equal sign. Right? So I got 2x over here. Let's move my variables all over to the left side. Let's just say that we're going to make the left side our variable side today. All right? Well, I have negative 9x over here. So the opposite of negative 9x, all right, is plus 9x. So I think some of you think we're always subtracting, but we're not. Sometimes you add. It just really depends what the sign is. All right? So we got plus 9x over here. So your 9x's cancel and you're left with 24. Bring down your negative 31. And then 2 plus 9 gives you 11x. So you got 11x minus 31. All right, next. Now I've got my variables on one side. I want my numbers on the other side. All right, they have to be on separate sides of the fence. I don't want them commingling and hanging out together. I definitely want my variables by themselves where the numbers can't bother them. All right, so we're going to add 31 because it's the opposite of subtracting 31. So I add 31, both sides, and then 4 plus 1 is 5, 2 plus 3 is 5, so you get 55. Those cancel, and then you bring your 11x down. And then my last step is, okay, I want this coefficient to be 1. So this is saying I have 11 groups of something equals 55. So what's one group? Well, the way you figure that out is you divide by what's being done. It's being multiplied by 11, so let's do the opposite. All right, and when we do that, we get x is equal to 5. And then 2 times 5 minus 31 should equal negative 9 times 5 plus 24. So this side, I'm going to do this a little quicker because I don't want to keep at this all day. Negative 9 times 5 is negative 45 plus 24. If you add those two together, it's just 45 minus 24, which is 21. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 45 is bigger and it's negative. So you get negative 21. And then over here, you get 10 minus 31. So do 31 minus 10, it's 21. and then the negative sign because it's with the bigger number. Negative 21. And when I say bigger number, technically 10 is bigger than negative 31, but 31 looks bigger, right? If you think about numbers just purely in a positive sense. So it equals, so we've got an equality, meaning that we solve for the correct thing. Okay, I'll give you guys, I need a second to catch my breath and a yawn. Oh, sorry. So I'll give you 30 seconds to get any of these last two written down. Ah, somebody left. Let's figure out who that is. All right. So we're going to do 3 problems now that are related to using the distributive property, combining like terms, and different kinds of solutions. All right. Now remember, you can use these notes with you. All right, on the test, you will, or the quiz, you'll be able to use these notes. All right, so this is problem 6. So we've got negative 12 times k plus 4 equals 60. All right, so I wanna solve this. I wanna figure out what k is. All right, so what I wanna do first, what you always wanna do first, is you want to get rid of your parentheses. All right, that's PEMDAS, right? That means you got to deal with parentheses first. So the way we deal with it, if there's a number in front of it, is you use a distributive property. So we're going to multiply negative 12 times both of those numbers. So negative 12 times k, well, whenever you multiply a variable and a coefficient, you just remember its coefficient is 1. So 1 times 12 is 12. Keep your negative, and then tack your k on. So you get negative 12k, and then negative 12 times 4 is negative, because negative times positive, 48. And then that is equal to 60. All right, now we just want to get that negative 12k by itself. All right, so in order to do that, and when I say negative 12k, I didn't say k, I said negative 12k. We want to get that whole term by itself. So we got to get rid of that negative 48. That's got to go over to the other side. Variables on one side, numbers on the other. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's just to reinforce that there is a distinct process here. Let's add 48 to both sides. So this gives you 108. And then you have negative 12k. Now, solve for k, right? Solve for k. What you are going to do is figure out what's my coefficient. Well, your coefficient is always this number out in front of your variable. So my coefficient is this negative 12. All right? So that means I'm going to divide by that. So I take that negative 12 and I divide this term by it to get it to go away. And then I divide it from the other side so that it, I'm keeping my equation balanced, right? Because if I did it to the left side, I got to do it to the right side. Okay, so then you're left with k, because negative 12 divided by negative 12 is 1. So you got 1k, but you don't write the 1. And then 108 divided by 12 is 9. And then a positive divided by a negative gives me a negative. All right. Oh, you bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. We got 2 more problems, guys. You're hanging in there. Thank you so much. Stay with me. All right. Number 4, or sorry, number 7. It's number 4 on my workbook here. So this one is going to take a little more to write down, but 8 times c minus 9 equals 6 times 2c minus 12, and then minus 4c. All right, so there's a lot going on with this problem. But hopefully the first thing you see that you think about that makes you go, what do I do first? I hope that you see that the parentheses are what you deal with first. Whenever you see parentheses, that should be the first thing you always deal with. And then after that, it's exponents, but we don't have exponents. And then you can start doing your multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. That's how your order of operations work. All right, so let's get rid of our parentheses by multiplying. Distributive property. So 8 times c is 8c. 8 times negative 9 is negative 72 equals, so 6 times 2c. So just do 6 times 2 is 12. Tack your c on. And now we're going to do 6 times negative 12, which gives you negative 72. When I was learning my math facts growing up, I had to learn 11s and 12s. So 12s don't give me any trouble. And then minus 4c. All right. So remember what I said yesterday, and hopefully this clued in with some of you. If you have more than 2 terms on one side, you've got too many, and you have to do some collecting. So I've got 2 terms over here. I've got 2 separate terms. I've got a variable term and a number. So this side is ready to go. But this side over here, I have a variable here and I have a variable here. I can't start moving things across and doing all that neatly and efficiently until I deal with that. So I've got 8c minus 72 is equal to, now let's combine positive 12c and minus 4c. Well, you get 8c because 12 minus 4. 12 minus 4 is 8. And then what's left is this negative 72. And if you're looking at this, you've got a situation where you have the exact same thing on both sides. So if you have one side of the equation and it's equal to the other side of the equation, well, not equal, if it's exactly the same as the other side of the equation, like same terms, same number of variables, same number of constants, if it's exactly the same, what happens is if I continue to solve, so if I say, okay, I'm going to get rid of 8c, what happens is you lose your variable. Your variable goes away, right? And you get negative 72 equals negative 72. And a lot of people at that point freak out and say, well, the answer is 0. And that's not correct. The answer isn't 0. The answer is, if you go back and look at this line right here, it doesn't matter what I put in for C on the left. I'm putting in the exact same thing over here, and everything else is the same. So no matter what number I put in, I'm going to get an equality on each side. So if I put 1 in, I would get 8 minus 72 over here, but I'd also get 8 minus 72 here. If I put 4 in, I'm going to get 32 minus 72, which is negative 40. But if I put 4 in over here, which I have to, because if you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other, I get the same thing. I get negative 40 again. So no matter what number I put in for the variable, I'm going to get a balanced equation. I'm going to get something that's equal. So when you have a situation like that, that is called that there is an infinite number of solutions. All right, and I taught you guys this yesterday, but I'm showing it again. It's an infinite number of solutions. Okay, I can use any number and it will work. I can use any negative numbers. I could use the number pi. I could use, really weird numbers. I could use fractions. I could use decimals. Doesn't matter. It will work. And they will all give me an equality where one side equals the other. All right, so The other case you'll look for is when you get something where you have like negative 60 equals negative 72. And when you get something like that, this is obviously false, right? This means not equal, right? Not equal. And when you get a case like that, that means that there is no solution, okay? So if it's equal to each other, it's infinite. And equal to each other, meaning that you've gotten rid of the variable, right? That it went away on its own. And if it's not equal to each other, there's no solution because there's no number you can put in that's going to work. All right, last problem, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, so number 8. We are going to do -5. If I can write it correctly. -5 times 3m plus 6 equals -3 times 4m minus 2. All right, so on this problem, parentheses, right? Got to get rid of the parentheses. And you get rid of them by using the distributive property. So we have -5 times 3. -5 times 3 is 15. It's negative. I almost forgot my negative. -15m. And then -5 times 6 is -30. All right, on my right side, -3 times 4 is -12m. Okay, and then -3 times -2. Remember, careful, right? Negative times a negative gives you a positive. So we got +6. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stick with variables on the left, numbers on the right. So if I have a -12 here, I want to do the opposite. And another way to think about it is whenever you move anything across the equal sign, mind you, whenever anything goes across the equal sign on the other side of the fence, its sign changes. All right. So we've got a -12. If we move it over to the other side, that means its sign changes, right? I'm adding it to both sides. That way it cancels out over here, which we want. And then you have -15 and +12. So just do 15 minus 12. That gives you 3m. And then take the sign of the number that looks larger. 15 looks larger than 12. So its sign is negative. So we're going to take that negative sign. And then -30. And so now I'm almost there. I want to get that -3m by itself so I can solve for m. So I've got to get rid of that -30. So I'm going to add 30 to both sides. And the reason I'm adding 30 is because it's already negative. So I want to add. I want to do the opposite. So this goes away. You add this, you get 36. And you get -3m over here. And this means that -3 groups of m equals +36. So I just got to figure out what one positive group of m is. And I figured that out by dividing both sides by the coefficient, which is -3. All right, now that cancels out nicely. You get m. 36 divided by 3 gives you 12. And then a positive divided by negative gives you a negative. And then I'll put my work in. You get 3 times -12 plus 6. And then on the other side, you get -3 times 4 times -12 minus 2. So ugly problems, but we can do it. PEMDAS tells us to do multiplication and division inside the parentheses first. So 3 times -12 is -36 plus 6. -36 plus 6 is -30. And so you have -30 times -5. All right, and that gives you +150. The other side, let's leave this -3 out here and let's do this. 4 times 12 is 48, and it's negative, and then minus 2. So negative 48 minus 2 gives you negative 50. And it looks almost exactly like this. It looks really similar. Different, but it looks close. So you got negative 3 times negative 50 gives you positive 150. So when you have that equality, that means your answer checks out and you got the right answer.